Hello and welcome to the Finding Rover Staff Overview and Tools presentation. My name is Michelle Meshko and I'm the Partnerships Director for Finding Rover. Myself and several members of our team have extensive histories working in shelters and rescues, so we have worked very hard to make this tool as easy and streamlined as possible for our partners. This presentation is for partners who have a direct data link from their database to their Finding Rover account. Finding Rover is a free online service that uses facial recognition to reunite lost dogs and cats with their families. We also provide added exposure for animals that are available for adoption within our partners' organizations. Finding Rover has a 98% accuracy rating, so I highly recommend, if you have not already done so, that you go and register yourself and your pets on findingrover.com now. If you don't have dogs or cats and you have reptiles or bunnies, I still recommend that you get registered on Finding Rover. Statistically, only 5 to 8% of people driving on the road see stray dogs and cats. We are that 5 to 8%. So at any given time, you could find a stray dog or cat. And if you have registered on Finding Rover already, you'll be able to log in and take a picture, upload that animal as found, and potentially get them back home within just minutes. I'd like to share a quick story with you. It's a video about 2 minutes long. This is Munchie Chee's Finding Rover story. It is an older version of our technology that's shared in this video, but that's okay because it's more about the story and the reunion that was created because of Finding Rover. I'll share that with you now.
Oh, Munchie Chee's a Brussels Griffon. She's been in my life since she was about 8 weeks old, and she's going on 5 now, and she's pretty much my everything.
Recently, Munchie Chee went missing while her owners were out of town.
My husband and I we're battling cancer right now. My husband was diagnosed last year. He has a rare form of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. We've been up at City of Hope since the beginning of March battling this. Someone was house sitting my dog, and she escaped somehow, and a Good Samaritan turned her in.
Frantic, Laura and her husband turned to Finding Rover, an app that uses facial recognition for dogs to reunite lost dogs with their owners.
We get the report of a Brussels Griffon reported lost through Finding Rover, and the photo is the dog that came into our shelter. We contacted the owner right away, told them Munchie Chee is safe and sound at the Bonita Animal Shelter, and they were ecstatic.
Finding Rover, they did a facial recognition. They found her within 5 minutes. I'm like so grateful because I mean that's the last thing we needed right now. Oh, my little girl, come here.
The interesting thing about this dog is this dog had a license tag, but the house sitter had taken it off. This dog has a microchip. We hadn't even run that microchip number yet. Finding Rover was the first connection that we had between this dog and the owner.
I immediately downloaded that to my phone. I just couldn't believe that in 5 minutes they found my dog. Shake. Yeah, good girl.
Everybody should have their dogs licensed, everybody should have their dogs microchipped, and everybody should have their dogs registered with Finding Rover.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't stop loving on her. I mean, our little furry critters are our kids practically. Couldn't imagine my life without her.
Wasn't that an awesome reunion story? I'd like to just point out a couple things about that story and why I keep sharing it over and over again, regardless of how old it is. They said that they were battling cancer in a different location from their home and from where Munchie Chee was. And I just wanted to let you know that that was 130 miles away from where Munchie Chee went missing. And with Finding Rover, she was able to report Munchie as lost in San Diego, even though she was in Los Angeles. Munchie had license tag and ID tags, but they weren't on her, and she is microchipped. But the Benina Animal Shelter decided to run Finding Rover first to see if there was a lost report, and in just 5 minutes, they were able to get in touch with Munchie's owner and schedule working out getting Munchie back home. Finding Rover is not only free, but it's in your pocket and at your fingertips at all times. As Dan said in the video, it's not meant to replace the tools that we already use, such as microchips, license tags, ID tags, and the traditional methods of letting other people know that we've either lost or found a pet. It's meant to be used in addition to, and hopefully be the first go-to. In partnering with shelters, rescues, and other animal welfare organizations, we're able to really get the word out about this amazing technology so that everybody can get on board and help more pets get back home quicker. Next, I'm going to share with you a live facial recognition search so that you can see how this works from the public's or a private account perspective. This is not through your partner account, but this is through an account that would be very similar to what you would use when you log in, register your own family pets. Okay, I've jumped over to the website to do this live facial recognition search. This is our testing platform, but it is an exact replica of the live platform. I just don't want to add any fake records if I don't need to in the live platform. So I already have an account, so I can click this login button. If you don't have an account yet, you're going to either use Register My Pet, or you can use the register here. Let me update my login criteria to go to the account, click login, and I'm in. So it lands on the home page, and you can see right away I don't have any pets registered. That's not a requirement to have Finding Rover. If you're someone like me that finds all of the stray dogs and cats every single time you leave the house, and I don't actually have a cat, which is not true, or a dog, you can actually use this to report that animal as found and see if you can find the family that's looking for this animal without having to take them to the shelter. But let's say I just adopted a dog. He kind of reminded me of a dog that I had when I was a kid, and I already have a Finding Rover account, so I'm super excited to get him registered. I'm going to click Add a Pet, Upload Photo, grab his photo. I'm going to use these tools to the left to bring the image in closer so that I can try to get all of his face in the center. Then I move the square, or you can move the photo, whichever one works. Click Next. Now it's going to ask me for a couple of pieces of information about him just to make this a unique record, but I wanted to show you how the technology is already working because it looked at this face and it said that is a dog. So let's go ahead and get his information in. So his name is required. He has a microchip, but I don't have it with me right now. That's not required. Breed is required in terms of primary breed. If I don't know what he is, I can use mixed breed. It's always at the top of the dog list, or I can start typing. Okay, I can use a secondary breed, but it is not required. Age is required. If you know the birth date, great. If you don't, use the age sliders, and you'll see in the lower left-hand corner that the age starts to increase or decrease. And there's my guesstimated date of birth. He is a boy. That is required. Vaccinated and microchipped. Not required. But that's it. And click Add. I have just registered my new dog on Finding Rover. His account is private, so he is not actually viewable to the public unless I report him as lost. Let's say a week goes by and I've gone to work and come home and I've discovered that Garth is not in the house. So the first thing I want to do is report him as lost on Finding Rover. And there's a convenient Report Lost button underneath his photo. This is the lost pet poster, and I just need to fill out the rest of the information. Most of his information is already there. In location, you can actually put a full address or just a zip code. Most people who have lost their pet from their home don't want to advertise their actual house numbers. So 92084, you can just enter the zip code as a starting point. Because remember, it's looking for a starting point and then it's looking at images. Need to identify the date he was lost. Today, okay. Phone number is required. It does not like dashes, so just numbers. Okay. Now, if the email address you are registered with is not the email address that you want displayed, let's say you have a different email address that sends notifications through to your phone, you can change that here. If there's a reward, you can enter the number or just type the word yes. And then this field here is a little bit more information about him should a finder find him or somebody see him, and you need to let them know some information. This is a good area if they're fearful and you don't want anybody to chase him. You just want to be notified of where he was last seen. Or let's say you can't see the back end here, but let's say he only has 3 legs. So you might want to identify that as an identifiable feature, or you can leave it blank. So I'm going to click See Lost Poster. And there's my completed poster. Now I can share this on Facebook, Twitter with my contacts, or I can even print this as a poster to share in the community. But the first thing I want to do is search the results to see if somebody's already reported him as found. So when I do that, it's going to analyze his photo, and the search results are going to show to the right. Look at that. There he is. Okay? So he's within the first 5 matches, but let's say he wasn't in the first 5 matches. If you don't see them right away, you do want to scroll a little bit because your dog may have been picked up and is scared and hiding somewhere, or maybe they took a picture like this, and so the facial recognition technology didn't work as well. Moving down here, this is all dogs. These are not possible matches based on the technology. This is everybody in your area. So this photo right here, this could be your dog, but we can't really tell in terms of using the technology. So you can use the technology and do a visual search, and you can keep scrolling and scrolling, and it goes all the way out across the country. Okay, but let's go back up because we did find him. Somebody has reported him as found. So I want to click on that image and it takes me to the found pet poster, and I can see that he is at Meshko's Mutts. Here's the address, their phone number, and their email address. So I can now go and pick him up. Okay. So when you go and get your dog and you bring him home, you want to make sure that he's no longer reported as lost. Now this can be done on the home page. It can also be done on the My Pets page. But we want to pull him out of public view because he's no longer missing, he's at home, and we want to make his account private again. So I just click here and I select I found Garth. Now if I didn't find him and it's been a few hours or a couple days, I want to do another search, I can just click search again and it will do another facial recognition search right away. So I found Garth. He's now safe and sound back home. And the next thing that I'm going to do is find him a buddy that will want him, get him to want to stay home. So the next piece that I'm going to show you is the Adopt a Pet section. In the Adopt a Pet tab, this is going to display all of the adoptable cats and dogs in our Finding Rover partner facilities. So if I click on that, it's going to show a little bit of everything, and I have 2 ways that I can go through this. I can either use these filters over here in any which way you want to. Maybe I just want to look at dogs and I don't really care if they're male or female or what age group. Or maybe I do care, so I'm going to add an age group. So it will filter them out based on this information. The other thing that you can do is actually use facial recognition technology to look for a very specific animal in how they appear in their appearance. So if I click here, it's going to open up a bunch of images that I can use. So let's say I wanted a blue pit bull. I could use this image to see how many of them are close by that are available for adoption. Or in our scenario, when I was a kid and I had the dog that looks like the dog I have now, I also had a cat that looked a very certain way. So if I have a picture of that cat, I can actually upload it. So it works the same way. I'm going to move my cat's face. I'm going to use the tools to the left, and we're going to center him in that square and click search. So now it's going to take that image, it's going to scan it, and it's going to look at all the adoptable records. So you can see there's some really great results with this search and really close resemblances. So if I'm looking at the browse on my cat, I can see that here and I can see that here. They're very, very similar. The one thing that I also wanted to point out about this particular search is that until your community grows and you start to have a lot more organizations on board, you're probably going to see that the cats are quite a ways away. So that this is 4,000 miles away, 887 miles away, but the technology still works. Now, the reality is that people are going to only really search using these filters and not the facial recognition technology, but we wanted to put it in there anyway because why not? It can be used this way, and as technology grows and as we advance in terms of how we identify and locate the pets that we want to bring home and have them join our families, this is just going to be another way in the future where people will actually use this a lot more. Okay, let's get back to the actual presentation and talk about what it means to be a partner with Finding Rover. So partnership means that both of us bring something to the table. Finding Rover is backed by the Petco Foundation, and we work on the word-of-mouth model. So instead of charging for the service so that we can have a bunch of money to put in advertising, we provide the service for free and ask that those who are partnered with us help to spread the word to get it out to their communities so that advertising isn't something that is an expense. And that goes for both sides. So Finding Rover has put in, along with its investors, $2.5 million. A quick correction here, it is actually $5.2 million as it shows on the screen to develop this software. And our goal is to always be able to offer it and keep it free. We also provide the training, the assets, and the support completely free, as well as doing social media pushes to promote our Finding Rover partners. So when new partners come on board, we share that on our social media platforms to help give them added exposure. Anytime one of our partners puts us in the media to share with their community to get everybody on board with Finding Rover so that it can work better, if that information comes to us, we will share that as well, so that that gives our partners an extra promotion, as well as sharing that, look, everybody's getting on board with Finding Rover, you need to as well. So what does that mean for our partners, you, and what you need to do on your side? It's simple. Just introduce, promote, and encourage registration on findingrover.com to your community. The number one way you're going to do this is to share Finding Rover at the time of adoptions, and if you work with strays, at the time of reclaim. You're also going to share findingrover.com with the community that reaches out to you when they've either lost or found a pet. Share Finding Rover in the media, newspapers, interviews, radio stations, anything like that, and also on your social media platforms. And a really big one to share Finding Rover is at events. So adoption events, donation drives, anything like that. Let everybody know that you're a partner with Finding Rover so they can get on board to help make your Finding Rover community grow so that this tool works at its best for you. So with your help, we can keep Finding Rover free for everyone. So let's talk about the steps that you need to do in order to make that happen on your side. And the first is to talk about website versus app. If you've been familiar with Finding Rover for quite some time, you're probably really familiar with the term the Finding Rover app. And that's because that is how we started. However, we've learned in our experience that having only an app meant that it limited who could use Finding Rover. If you didn't have the right smartphone that's an Apple or Android device with a new enough operating system, you couldn't even download the app. To avoid the limitation of people not being able to access Finding Rover, we've decided to focus on our website instead. So always promote findingrover.com versus the Finding Rover app. We want to say findingrover.com, findingrover.com, findingrover.com. That way, it doesn't matter what phone you have or mobile device, and it doesn't matter what operating system you have. As long as you have a web browser and you have the internet, you can get to findingrover.com. We've worked really hard to make it mobile friendly and very, very versatile and easy to use, just like the website. The app still exists, and we are developing a new one, but we are always from this day forward going to be recommending findingrover.com first and foremost. Let's talk about widgets. So widgets are a generic term that we use to talk about some links and buttons that we have created for you. I'm actually going to jump over to some live sites so that you can see how they work. So here we have one of our partners' Facebook page, and it is showing our widgets in the left-hand menu. You can see there's a widget for searching an adoptable pet, and there's a widget for searching a lost pet. For those who have adoptable pets, this link, when you click on it, will take you to a new tab, and it will jump straight into your adoptable pets as the first for them to view. If you have stray pets, you'll want to make sure that this link is here so that they can click very quickly and see who you have in your care as a found pet, and they can do a facial recognition search right off the bat. Now, Facebook pages are super helpful in trying to help reunite lost and found pets with their families. However, when you make a post on a Facebook page and then more content gets added and somebody else makes another post and then we're sharing about an event, that post gets pushed down further and further and further. And that makes it very difficult for somebody who is searching for their pet to see that post. These widgets take away that problem. Now, your Facebook page does have to have more than 2,000 likes or followers in order for the widgets to work. If you have less than that, Facebook doesn't allow you to use these links because it assumes that your page is not real. And that's just because of things that have been going on with Facebook recently. They want to make sure it's a legitimate page that allows our links to be added to your menu. Now, if you don't take in strays, we have a generic link that you can put in here that just jumps to the area where you are located versus searching your found pets first and then moving out beyond there. These links are the most popular way that people jump in and discover Finding Rover. Let's take a quick look at that partner's website. Here they've applied the widgets on the home page, and those are actually buttons. So these buttons do the exact same thing that the links on their Facebook page does, except for they're a button instead of a link. Now, a lot of organizations are going to have lost and found pages that either display the pets that they have in care or tell you what to do if you've lost a pet. And that is generally where they apply this lost button. And same with the adoptable pet page. How do I adopt a pet from you? What pets do you have available for adoption? A lot of people will use this button on that page, but this is the most important button in Finding Rover. This organization actually has it at the top on their homepage so that it's accessible right away. You'll want to talk to your managers or supervisors and find out where it is on your website, or go take a look and see if you can find them yourself. Now that we know what widgets are, let's find out what the process is for you. The first thing is that there are only 3 easy steps, 2 of which you're probably already doing. Because your database is automatically talking to your Finding Rover account, you don't actually have to know how to go in and manage the pets in your partnership account. All you need to do is 3 steps to make sure that that information that's going from your database to your Finding Rover partner account is as good as it can be. So the first is photos. We want to make sure that we have a photo uploaded to your database, to that pet's record, that is Finding Rover ready if possible. Now we know, because we have sheltering experience, that this is not always possible upon intake. Some animals are very scared, they're not happy, they're definitely not in the mood to have their picture taken, let alone possibly even being touched. So you've got to do the best that you can. Any photo is better than no photo. If there's no photo, there's no way for anybody to either do a facial recognition match or even a visual search to see if that's their pet. This picture is ideal, but we'll talk a little bit more about pictures in a minute. The second thing you want to do, if you haven't done so already, is get registered on findingrover.com yourself and upload your pets if you have dogs or cats. Then start to share it. You're going to share it with your friends, your family, other animal-related organizations in your area, and you're also going to share it at the time of adoption and reclaim if you work with strays. It's very important. When you're talking about Finding Rover at the time of adoption and reclaim, you're also going to get an email address for the person exiting that pet. I'll go over why and how you go about doing that in just a minute, but it's 3 easy steps, 2 of which you're already probably doing, which is your photos and your emails. So, ideal photo, talk about Finding Rover and promote it, and get an email address, and Finding Rover will take care of everything else moving forward. We have provided this sheet for you so that if you have a designated area where, say, adoption photos are taken, you can put this on the wall for everyone to see. Or you can print it out and have it available to those who take your photos on a regular basis. That could be intake staff, or it could be volunteers that come and do adoption photos once a week or once a month. Whoever does your photos, make sure they have a copy of this image to kind of guide them to understand what's a really good Finding Rover photo. So obviously the photos across the top are animals that are looking directly at you. And we know in a shelter environment that is not always going to be the case. Less ideal are these photos in the second row. Anything obstructing the face can obstruct and diminish the Finding Rover facial recognition technology. Also, if we can only see a profile of the animal, we're probably not going to see this photo as a match within the first 1 or 2 lines of the results. Again, any photo is better than no photo, though. And you saw some of the photos in our example where half of the face is actually cut off. Make sure that that doesn't happen with your organization. So let's talk a little bit about some examples of photos. So this dog here is looking a little to the side. Is that a photo that's okay? It's going to work great. What about this photo? We have 2 dogs in the image. Let's say these 2 dogs came in as strays together. So we want to show them together. But it's not going to work in terms of facial recognition technology. So In your database, the primary photo, or the default photo, is the only photo that comes across to Finding Rover. Please make sure it's only of the animal that the record belongs to, and then this photo can be stored in another area. So this is not a good Finding Rover photo. How about this photo here? What if this is the only photo that you could get? It'll work, but it's not ideal for the technology. One, the face is very far away, so you'd want to use your cropping tools to try to bring it closer. And the other thing is there's so much texture in the background and surrounding that it's really not going to be easy for the technology to lock onto the animal's face. So this is not an ideal Finding Rover photo. How about this cat? We have a very clear image of this cat's face, but the cat is sideways. So it may or may not work. It's a 50-50 chance that it's going to work or not work very well. So if possible, rotate the image so that the face is as upright as possible. Not a very good Finding Rover photo. How about this dog over here? Now this is a classic example of a dog that came in completely covered in mats. And the first question always is, will the technology work? If both photos are of them sitting up, it actually does work. Now, we have done a test on this specific dog because this specific dog actually did come in matted. And this is the shaved down image after we cleaned him up. So when we did the test against each other, the matted photo and the cleaned up photo, both photos came up in the results about the third or fourth line down. So it does work. Also, the entire body is pretty much in this image, and that's okay. So knowing what we know now, are these two cats a good image or not? Not for Finding Rover. How about this poor little puppy that's behind the bars? If that's the only photo you can get, then use it. But as soon as you get an opportunity to get a better photo of this dog, take a better photo, upload it to your database, and that will eventually push over to the Finding Rover account. Now, what about this photo? There's a human face in this image as well as a doggy face. It's not a good idea. And the reason why is because they're both faces, and the technology doesn't know which one to latch onto. We've actually used this photo in testing, and it's a 50-50 hit or miss, but when it's latching onto the human face, the interesting results are abound. What about this photo here? Now, the second most common question is, we like to take photos where the entire body is in the image. Is that okay? Yes, it is, and I understand why. What if she only had 3 legs? What if she was pregnant? What if she had a very unusual coat pattern? It's okay, it does work. This photo is good. How about the next kitten photo? The entire body's in the image. She's kind of looking a little bit to the side, but we can actually see from side to side and top to bottom of her face. So this photo is good. So that would also make the kitten photo below well as well. So just because they have a toy, or maybe they have some clothes on or a cute little bandana, that's okay, because it's really just looking for the face in order for the technology to work. So at the time of adoption or reclaim, if you work with strays, you're going to want to talk about Finding Rover. They need to hear that you are a Finding Rover partner because they're potentially going to get an email from Finding Rover. We know, having experience in the shelter world, that you have about 95 things that you have to share with somebody who's exiting a pet from your care. And they're only going to hear about 10% of that information. So adding one more thing probably feels a little bit daunting, but we've done everything we can to keep it very simple. One of the things that Dan said in the video that we saw of Munchie is make sure your dogs are microchipped, make sure they have a license, and make sure they're on Finding Rover. Cats too. So that's a really good and simple way to share, and I'll show you how. So When you get your pet home, make sure the microchip is always kept up to date, especially if you move. Keep your license and ID tags on your pet at all times. And make sure they're registered on Finding Rover, the free facial recognition tool that utilizes facial recognition to reunite lost pets with their families. Fifi came in as a stray. Should that happen again, we want to make sure you can find Fifi right away. We're a partner with Finding Rover, so you will be getting an email to remind you to register. Super quick, right? We've provided scripts that you can follow to make it easy. Now these look a little bit long and they cover a couple different scenarios, and one's for adoption and one's for reclaim. But this is just for as you're starting out to get used to what you're going to figure out to say that works best for you. And once you get Finding Rover into your personal script when doing an adoption, you won't need these anymore. Let's take a minute to talk about the email address form and how you're going to use it. At the time of exit, before you process that exit in your database, you want to enter their email address if they're interested in registering with Finding Rover. So you can use this form to actually read the script or just introduce it how you're going to do it naturally. And you're going to want to ask them to please put their email address in this box. Now, I want to just reiterate that before you complete the exit, and here's why. When you exit a pet out of your database, that information comes over to your Finding Rover account in order to pull that pet off of your feed so they're no longer viewable by the public. If there's an email address associated with that, we're able to reach out to them to remind them to register on Finding Rover. Now I want to explain how that works so that you're comfortable with it and can answer any questions should any come up. So let's say you put johnsmith@gmail.com in your database under the person information, and then you process Fifi out over to them, either by way of adoption or reclaim. What happens is when Finding Rover is notified of that through the data feed, it's going to do a search in its database to see if that email address already exists. If it does, it's going to send Fifi's profile over to that account and send an email saying congratulations on taking Fifi home. Now, if it does not find this email address in its database, it's going to start a series of 3 reminders. Those reminders go out at 8 hours post-exit, 14 days post-exit, and 28 days post-exit. Now, if at any time in between each of those reminders, johnsmith@gmail.com creates an account using that email address, then those emails will stop. So every time before it sends out a reminder, it is going to do a search first to see if that's already there. And if that email address comes up attached to an account, Fifi's profile is just going to automatically be moved over to it. Now, if at day 30, John Smith has still not registered on Finding Rover, that information, his email address, and Fifi's profile will go into an archive, and Finding Rover does not reach out to him again. So let's say John Smith comes back and finds his paperwork, and it's a month later, or 2 months, or 6 months, or a year, even 2 years. If he registers on Finding Rover with that same email address, it will wake up Fifi's profile and move it over to his account. But in between that time, Finding Rover will not reach out to him again unless he exits another pet from one of our Finding Rover partners. And then that will start the cycle again if he doesn't already have an email address. So the next step with this form, once you get the email address, you put it in your database, then you process the exit in your database. You're going to put this form in their adoption packet or their reclaim packet and send it home with them to serve as a reminder to register on Finding Rover. And hopefully they'll register so that those emails don't even start. On this form, you can see at the bottom, it gives brief instructions on how to use Finding Rover moving forward should Fifi ever go missing. And here is how to do that. I want to share with you what the emails look like. If the pet has transferred to an account where the email address is already in Finding Rover as a registered user, they will get one email from us saying congratulations. And it's going to be very clear that that interaction is because they pulled the animal or adopted or reclaimed the animal from you. The first thing they'll see is that your organization's name will show in that email not once, but twice. The photo of their pet is going to be in the email, and your website is going to be in the email as well. So it's very clear that this came to them because they adopted or reclaimed an animal from you. This is why it's so important to let them know that you're a Finding Rover partner, so they know this is not spam, and they know that you didn't sell their email address to any third parties. This happened because you told them it was going to happen. And all they need to do is click on this button, and it will take them to Finding Rover, where they can log into their account and see that their pet's profile has been already created and moved to them. Now, if it's transferred to an email address that's not registered yet, this is the email that they will receive. It's a little bit different, but it has your organization's logo, it has their pet's photo, and it has your organization's name within that email. All they need to do to complete the transfer and register is click on this button. If they choose not to, they just need to ignore the email. But if they click that button, we're only going to ask them 3 pieces of information. 1 is their name, first and last. 2 is their zip code. And 3 is a password. That's it. They click the box that says that they've accepted the terms of service and the privacy policy has been read. We make that very clear so they understand that their information is kept private. Click the register button and they're in. We've also provided scripts for you to share Finding Rover with people who are reporting their pets as lost or reporting that they have found a pet but they're not bringing the animal into you. Again, it's a little lengthy, there's different situations, and you will eventually work out exactly what you're going to say every time you take one of these calls or have one of these interactions. We also provide a really quick, easy to use handout that you can share with people if they're in front of you in person, reporting a pet as lost or a pet as found. These come on an 8.5 by 11 sheet, and there's 4 on each sheet so that it's not as big to hand out. It's very easy to grab and go. Now, if you are promoting Finding Rover, your community is potentially going to start to see you as the Finding Rover experts, and they may come in and ask you how to do this or how to do that, and you may or may not know the answer. If you don't know the answer, we've also provided our information cards that you can hand out so they can get in touch with us directly, and we can help them. You should also have a copy of our resources guide that has our links and our email addresses for you to use however you need to, either for you to access or for you to share. For example, if you have a neighboring rescue that you work with that wants to partner with Finding Rover, you can send them to our website and they just click on the Partners tab, or they can type in this link. I'd like to take a couple minutes here to just share my own personal experience with Finding Rover and a reunion story. This is Caramel's Finding Rover story. So Caramel was a 10-month-old puppy that not only found herself lost, but lost in a neighborhood that she didn't know. And she was seen by a Good Samaritan, but she was being attacked by a coyote. And that Good Samaritan managed to get that coyote to drop Caramel, where she was able to catch Caramel and take her straight to an emergency vet in the area. The emergency vet then vaccinated her for rabies and also cleaned up her wounds, but did not find any identification on her. So she wasn't microchipped and she didn't have any tags. So her next step in her journey was to be transferred to the local shelter, the one closest to the vet clinic. And that shelter was a Finding Rover partner. So she was displayed for about 11 days as a stray in that shelter's care, so she was findable. But Caramel's parents or family did not know about Finding Rover at this time. When a domestic animal is bitten by a possible rabies carrier, and they're vaccinated within 48 hours of that bite, but there is no prior proof of vaccination, that is a 6-month quarantine here in San Diego County. So instead of isolating this puppy in a shelter environment for 6 months, they reached out to all of their rescue partners that had foster homes to see if anybody was willing to take on this really long project. And they reached out to a rescue that I happened to be volunteering for at the time, who was also a Finding Rover partner. But because the rescue is not allowed to take in strays, when she came into the care of the rescue, she still was not on Finding Rover as findable. And I was on a mission. I also work in behavior, and I knew that this time in Caramel's life meant she was supposed to be forming positive relationships and socializing with other humans and other dogs and other animals. But she was going to miss out on that if she was in isolation for 6 months. That's a really long time for a puppy, especially when they're supposed to be learning how to be social with other animals. So I was on a mission to see if I could find the family to get proof of a potential prior rabies vaccination, because that would drop her quarantine time down to only 30 days, which she was already halfway through. So I, on my private account, posted Caramel as found, and when I did a facial recognition search, lo and behold, I found her. And that was really an awesome day. She wasn't at the top in the first 2 rows, but she was in the 3rd row. And that's because this photo is of her looking sideways. But you can see very clearly that's the same dog. So when I clicked on this and I was able to get the email address of the family, I reached out and very quickly explained the situation, and so they were on the hunt to find that rabies certificate to be able to get Caramel off of quarantine within a 30-day time frame instead of 6 months and back home to them. So I want to share, this is also a long distance journey because Caramel's home is over here on Compton Street. She was lost in Paradise Hills, where she was also found and taken to the local vet in that area. And then she was taken to the local shelter for the veterinary office and then transferred to my home up here in rescue. Now, the reason why Finding Rover was suddenly brought to the attention of the family was because they were close to their home, and they found that the Bonita shelter was close to both where she was lost and to their home. So it was a natural assumption that if she was going to be found as a stray, she was going to go to that shelter. They too are a Finding Rover partner, and they are the ones in our first video that we watched earlier in this presentation, and they told them about Finding Rover, and that's how we were able to get connected. So on the 31st day of being in quarantine, I was able to take Caramel outside, she was able to hang out with the other dogs, and we were able to get her back home and reunited with her family. So that was just another example of how many different really crazy situations can happen and how this tool can really help to save not only the life of an animal, but the mental state of that animal as well. In closing, I just want to share some of the feedback that we've received from some of our current partners over the years. And it's actually been really quite incredible, the feedback that we have gotten from many of them. And that's why I want to include it here so that you can see that it has a greater effect than just returning animals back home. It's kind of like a ripple effect. So on the positive side, moving up, a lot of organizations have reached back to us and reported that they have seen a great increase in reclaims, which is our #1 goal. In addition to that, they've also seen an increase in the number of adoptions and support from the community. We've had a number of smaller organizations who didn't even have foster programs because the community didn't see them in the best light. And when they implemented Finding Rover and they put it out in the media and in the press that they were doing this to try to get those pets back home versus any other alternatives, the community started coming forward and making donations. And in doing that, that was able to fund a way to having a foster program. And that's happened on at least 3 occasions that I'm aware of. So that's really awesome to me. And on the flip side of that, they've reported back saying there's been a decrease in the average length of stay. So a typical number is the average length of stay for cats is 80 to 90 days, and for dogs it's 30 to 40 days. That varies across different organizations, of course, but that has shown a significant decrease because these animals have been able to go home a lot quicker due to Finding Rover and the added exposure. There's also been a decrease of stress, not just on the animal that gets to go home, but on the animals that are still in care because there's not as many, on the family, on the staff, and on the volunteers. So when animals are able to go home, it's such a positive thing that it does decrease the level of stress that everyone is going through when they're working in these environments. And a decrease in cost. If you can get an animal to go home within the first 24 or 48 hours, then that saves money on the care of that animal. If you have an animal that came in that was hit by a car and you're able to locate the family and they're willing to take on that expense and take their pets to their vets, then that saves on that expense. Right? So decrease in costs because of the average length of stay, because of the number of animals that are going home. It's just a great all the way around. They've also seen, what's not on the screen, an increase in space. And for those that do euthanize, they've seen a decrease in euthanasia numbers. So they're able to reach their goals of, minimizing that to bringing that number as low as possible. And Finding Rover is helping them do that. So just a few things to share with you about how Finding Rover has a ripple effect, not only in the community, but also within your organization. So here's just a handful of partner reunions. These are reunions that have happened because of Finding Rover and our partnership with organizations across the country. We're looking forward to hearing about reunions that happen with you. So any time that somebody comes and reclaims a pet from your care, ask them, how did you know that we had your dog? Or how did you know that we had your cat? And if they say, because I saw him on Finding Rover, it's a great opportunity for you to take a picture, get the backstory, because you have no idea what amazing, crazy story it could be, and ask them if you can share this story with your community to help others get on board with Finding Rover so that if their pets are missing, they can have a successful reunion just like they were able to do. And that's the end of our presentation. I want to thank you for taking the time to share and watch this presentation to really learn why Finding Rover is valuable, why you're promoting Finding Rover, why your organization is partnered with us, and what your responsibilities are now moving forward in order to help your finding community grow and to help get more pets back home. Remember, if you need to reach out to us, you can email us at support@findingrover.com. We're there to help answer any questions that you may have, and you are also free to refer this email address to anyone in the public that may be having questions or issues or need to get in touch with us directly. Thank you and welcome on board. We're really happy to have you as a Finding Rover partner.